lots of Titans news and updates have happened over the last week while this podcast was on a vacation. We had Titans opened rookie minicamp. They signed 5 of their rookie draft picks. They had a few veteran tryouts at rookie camp. They signed a tight end 3. The NFL schedule was released. The Titans have announced a new stadium opening target date. OTAs are happening right now, and we're going to cover some of Brian Callahan's comments from interviews he's done over the last week or so. This is the Music City Audible, a jam-packed episode. Let's get to it. Oh, welcome everyone to another episode of the Music City Audible podcast presented by Broadway Sports Media in partnership with 440 Sports. I'm Justin Graver. With me, as always, is Justin Melo, and today we have a ton of stuff to cover as I just ran through in that intro. I might have picked the wrong week to go on vacation, Justin. We missed rookie minicamp, we missed the schedule released, and a bunch of other news, so we got a lot of catching up to do today. How's it going?
Doing well, man. Glad to be back here with you on a regular schedule. It looks like you enjoyed your vacation, although you're not as tanned as I thought you'd be. I expected more of a glow.
It's the zoom
coming through the screen. Maybe it's the lighting.
Yeah, it's the lighting.
It's the lighting. No, I'm doing well. Glad to be back on a regular schedule with you. We got a ton of stuff to cover, as you said. A couple of things we missed we're going to touch on, like the schedule release, rookie mini camp, but also some very current stuff like OTAs who are literally happening right now as I look at my watch. The second OTA practice, first one that was open, so open to the media, I believe that is. So a couple things to talk about, but really excited for that.
Yeah, really excited to dive into this. We're going to start with rookie mini camp here, but before we do, let's remind everyone quickly that this episode is brought to you by Sinkers Beverages in East Nashville and Bluegrass Beverages in Hendersonville. Huge selection of bourbon, wine, beer, everything you could possibly need, booze related, over at Sinkers Beverages, so check them out. If you head to their website, sinkersbeverages.com, or the link in this podcast description, you can join the In-Crowd. In-Crowd members get access to allocated wines and spirits, exclusive events, early access to barrel releases, and more. So check out sinkers.com. All right, Justin, let's get into it with rookie mini camp here. And as we get into this, I just want to give a message to our listeners there. If you're listening on audio, we really appreciate it. But if you head over to the YouTube, you can see our faces. We're trying to grow the YouTube channel, so we really appreciate it even more if you tune into this show on YouTube. Or hey, open up your podcast app, press play, turn the sound off, and then go to YouTube and watch us there so we get the double download effect. We'd really appreciate that. But make sure you are subscribed to the Music City Audible channel. Give this video a thumbs up, like, and turn on channel alerts so you get a notification every time we drop a new video. And if you want to help us grow, remember to share this with your friends, send this video around, and drop a comment below. Comments are the key to growth. Really, it helps us so much. You guys don't even know. All you got to do is comment anything below, whatever's on your mind with all this Titans updates. Or if you have questions for us, Justin and I will hop in those comments and reply to you. So make sure you're dropping comments on the YouTube video. We really appreciate all of your support. All right, Justin, let's get into it. Rookie minicamp took place a couple weekends ago now. Justin, not a whole lot to take away from rookie minicamp. I think the big thing is no major injuries, which is always something you want to see, and no bad reports. None of the stuff we heard, like with Treylon Burks showing up out of shape when he did that. And obviously there were some concerns with a guy like T'Vondre Sweat. What kind of shape and what kind of condition would he be in showing up to camp as a big dude who has struggled with his weight at times in the past? But by all accounts, every single rookie draft picked was out there flying around, looked good. There was a minor injury we'll touch on with Jarvis Brownlee Jr. leaving the practice field early. But other than that, it felt like a very positive rookie minicamp for this draft class, for Brian Callahan's first draft class. And I don't know, there's not a whole lot of takeaways because it's not like they were playing games or anything like that, but it is nice to know that there was, no negativity coming out of this past weekend, or 2 weekends ago, I should say.
Well, the only thing I'll note from it is, number one, I thought J.C. Latham looked, powerful, smooth, explosive, looked to be putting down the building blocks for a successful acclimation, to left tackle. I don't know, I don't know how much you saw or didn't see, but like Bill Callahan, the O-line coach, had his personalized sleds out there that weigh like 380 pounds, and apparently they only move if you strike them with the correct technique. So it was nice to see JC acclimate to that so quickly. You had Coach Mack, Dave McGinnis from the Titans radio. He was down there watching him perform. They put out a video of how impressed he was with JC's movement skills and how much better he got day by day. The other thing I'll note, as you said, T'Vondre Sweat, it's a good thing that we have nothing to note probably on him. And I thought Brian Callahan, the head coach, did say something interesting about his weight never impacted his performance in college. So very clear where the Titans landed on which side of the debate they landed on there.
Yeah, there's a lot of videos out there that came out through minicamp, and yeah, JC Latham pushing the 380-pound sled, struggling the first couple reps, and then finding the right technique and the right, leverage point to hit the sled with to drive it back. I think it's so great. I mean, talk about the impact Bill Callahan's having. Like, we saw, there were a lot of people on social media who took the clip of Latham struggling on the sled and put it side by side with a Jaguars rookie mid-round pick pushing the Jaguars sled that they use, and people trying to compare them, and it's like, these are two different sleds. One of these sleds moves very easily, and the other one, you have to strike it, like you said, with the exact right technique and the exact right leverage, or it will not move. And Bill Callahan says that it more closely replicates what it's actually like to push a defender off. They get off balance. They have certain leverage points that you have to hit. So I think that is really good for JC Latham's development. He worked mostly on, pass setting on the left side, footwork from the left side. So I think that transition for him, as we've discussed at length now since he was drafted, I think that transition for him is going to be no problem. And T'Vondre Sweat too. I mean, there's lots of videos out, like I said, of him running through the bags and tackling practice dummies. And he looks like he is very light on his feet despite weighing a lot. And, he talked about, working with a nutritionist to find the right weight for him. So you like to see him, even as a rookie, already in that right professional mindset of, how do I need to take care of my body from day one so that I don't end up, having to do work after the fact and make up for bad habits. He's going to start with good habits right away. And I thought T'Vondre Sweat, I think, there was a lot of, obviously, negative feedback when he was first picked because of some off the field issues, some positional question marks about, can you play all three downs and all that. But I think the more this kid gets up and speaks to the media, the more Titans fans are going to absolutely fall in love with him. He did a one-on-one sit down with Mike Keith where he was going back and forth with him about the real UT and which orange is the right orange, the burnt orange versus Tennessee Volunteers orange. And just you can tell he has such an electric personality that I think Titans fans are going to fall in love with him pretty quickly.
Yeah, the interview with Mike Keith was hilarious. I thought the clip they put out on Twitter was great. By all accounts, a good start for him to his, the start of his Tennessee Titans career. So happy to hear nothing with the weight. And now that we're at OTAs, you got the rookies mixing in with the veterans, right? So they'll get their first look at him as well. And you'll get T'Vondre Sweat lined up next to Jeffrey Simmons or a Sebastian Joseph Day and things of that nature. So that should be really good for the rookies as well.
Yeah, no doubt. Couple other little notes on the rookies here. Cedric Gray, the linebacker they drafted. Now, this was all rookies, so it's not that surprising, but he was out there calling the defense in his first OTA practice. Now, like I said, it's all rookies, so someone's got to do it. Someone who's not experienced at doing that is going to be doing it during OTAs, but it's nice to see Cedric Gray getting that work in early so that when it comes time to compete for that ability to call the defense, he at least has done it already in some practices. I mentioned Jarvis Brownlee Jr.'s injury. Jaquan Jackson was out there flying around, catching balls. He had one drop, I think, noted by Jim Wyatt. But other than that, he apparently looked pretty good too. And then the safety turned to linebacker out of Miami, James Williams, apparently looks the part. Huge 6'4" guy in there with the linebacker group. And then Jalen Harrell working with the outside linebackers and the defensive line. So nice to see all these guys get in there. I do want to mention quickly here, there were two interesting players at Titans rookie minicamp, guys who are not rookies by any stretch of the word. Veteran players, William Jackson III, a cornerback who spent some time with Brian Callahan in Cincinnati, and Shane Ray, a defensive end, former high pick of the Denver Broncos. These two guys are out there at Titans minicamp now, or at rookie minicamp. Now, nothing's happened yet. They haven't signed either of these guys, but it's interesting that they were getting a look at some veteran depth pieces at two position groups that are pretty different, I think, when it comes to depth. We know how good the cornerback room is, and even the depth there, it's not the best depth in the world. William Jackson III would be an upgrade on the cornerback 4 spot right now, but they are so top heavy there. And then the defensive ends where they do need bodies. They do need depth. So interesting to see them working out two guys there. No safety, no veteran safety in for tryout, no veteran linebacker in for tryout. So that's interesting. But what do you make of William Jackson III and Shane Ray being out there at Titans rookie minicamp?
Well, this is a trend that's becoming increasingly popular, and I like it. Like for example, Anthony Averett, former cornerback at Alabama, was at the Pittsburgh Steelers rookie minicamp. They
Mhm.
signed him right after.
Oh, wow.
I think Jarvis Landry, that one's a stunning one, was at rookie minicamp with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like
Right.
this is a thing that's becoming a thing. I will say we're a little late to this because I'm going to
Yeah.
assume that the Titans were going to sign one of them. It would have already happened. It would have happened right after rookie minicamp. That's the trend that's typically followed. The first thing that struck me when I first saw the news is probably not a coincidence that Brian Callahan has connections to both of them. You mentioned he was with William Jackson III in Cincinnati. He was also with Shane Ray in Denver back then. I mean, Shane Ray, that one really came out of left field.
Yeah.
You're talking about like a 2015 first round bust that's played in the CFL. I think he was here for my Toronto Argonauts at one point recently. So it's like that one really came out of left field. William Jackson's had so many injuries in recent years. Ultimately, I'm not surprised that neither of them have been signed yet.
Yeah, I agree. And again, they don't necessarily need bodies at those. I mean, defensive end they do, but maybe they feel like Shane Ray's a little past where he's being able to be effective. And we'll see if they sign somebody at one of those positions. We're still waiting for them to sign a safety. So we will get on and record an emergency pod if and when that happens. I do think that's going to happen sooner than later. We saw the ESPN piece that came out earlier this week, or I guess late last week, with the best remaining free agent fits. And they had, I think it was Matt Bowen who wrote the piece, had best free agent fit for Justin Simmons was with the Titans. So we'll wait and see if anything happens in the safety market. However,
sorry, not to cut in, but Jamal Adams is visiting the Baltimore Ravens today, so you wonder if that could kickstart some of the movement that has to happen at safety still.
Good point with the safety market moving there. While they haven't signed any of those guys that we just mentioned, they did sign a tight end 3, Nick Vannett, who I don't know much about, but I do remember when he came out of the draft. Like I remember talking about him as a tight end prospect. So I think he slots in pretty easily as your tight end 3, maybe tight end 2, depending on how they use these guys. I think Chigakonkwo is clear-cut tight end 1, and then it's going to be a combination of Josh Whyle and Nick Vannett. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Nick Vannett played more snaps than Josh Whyle just because of the role. Like, you need a blocking tight end who's probably going to get a lot of snaps. Josh Whyle more in the mold of the big pass-catching guys, obviously still working on his blocking after his rookie season. So I think Nick Vannett is your new, Luke Stalker type of guy that has, the guys that have been around the Titans, Jeff Swaim, like that kind of guy. He's your new Nick Vannett.
He's definitely a blocking first tight end, and he's the new Trayvon Wesco, if you will, who's no longer on the roster. Look, he's played a lot of football in this league. He's the favorite to be the tight end 3. It's a kick in the gut, let's call it what it is, to the 2 UDFA tight ends, right? The kid out of Temple and the kid out of Iowa. And even Thomas Udokoya, the guy that's still under the international exemption. So bit of a kick in the gut to those guys' chances of being tight end 3.
Yeah.
I do think it's going to be Nick Vannett, but I will say with the new offense, 11 personnel, yada, yada, I don't think this guy's going to come in and play like 40% of offensive snaps like Jeff Swaim did or like Trayvon Wesco was doing when he was healthy. So there's a role for him, and I do think he's got the upper leg on being the tight end 3. But it'll be interesting to see what kind of competition he gets, what kind of pushback from the UDFAs or a Thomas Odukoya.
I mean, I will say this is his 8th team in 8 seasons now. So, or I guess this will be his 9th season, 8th team in his 9th, going into his 9th season. So it's not
quite, he doesn't come here quite with the reputation that like a Jeff Swaim or a Trayvon Wesco had.
Right. So I wouldn't say it's a lock that he beats out those guys. I mean, the UDFAs, like you mentioned, Thomas Odukoya, they have a long road to climb now. They have another body in front of them that they have to prove that they can be more trusted than, especially with those run blocking reps. But, I mean, there's a reason this guy hasn't stuck on any of the rosters he's played on the last 8 seasons. So that is something to monitor here as OTAs get underway.
Right.
But before we get to talking about OTAs, Justin, a big thing we missed while I was gone last week was the NFL schedule has finally been released. A lot of hype and a lot of leaks leading up to it to build up that anticipation. And then last Wednesday, we got the NFL schedule. So I think you and I should spend just a quick, brief minute here. It's already been covered extensively because we're 6 days late to this now. But I do want to talk about the Titans schedule from the standpoint of where is their toughest stretch? Where's their longest road trip? Where's their longest homestand? How do the division games shake out here? So let's quickly look at the Titans schedule. Is there anything, as you look at what they have to face here, is there anything that jumps out to you The first thing that jumps out to me is only one primetime game, and that's a Monday night game, week 4, back in Miami, same place, same slot that they had their last Monday night football game. And again, it's not the only Monday night game of the week. So the only Titans primetime game this entire season is a shared primetime slot. Anything else jump out to you about the Titans schedule?
Well, the first thing that jumped out to me, and it felt like a consistent theme for the Titans in recent years, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but and maybe it's a league-wide thing, but all the divisional games at the end. You know, 3 divisional games in a row to end the season, right? They'll be on the road in week 16 and 17 against Indianapolis and Jacksonville. Then they end their year in Nashville by hosting the Texans in week 18. So you want to talk about a decisive stretch. You'd like to think you're still in the playoff hunt going into week 16. You're going to end with 3 division games. Another thing that stuck out to me is they don't play their first division game until week 6.
Yeah.
Right. And they got a couple, it's a weird, like they got a couple NFC opponents to start the year, opening few weeks. Then you get the week 5 bye, which is quite early. Jeffrey Simmons reacting on Twitter was not happy about that. Don't blame him. And then you get the Colts at Nissan Stadium in week 6 for the first time, the first AFC South team to play the Titans in 2024. So that stuck out to me. Another thing that jumped out, I mean, we're going to move on from this because you said we kind of missed the boat on it, but there's a decent chance the Titans are going to have 3 rookie quarterbacks in a 5-week span.
Yeah.
I think that was really interesting.
I was going to bring
the Patriots in week 9.
I was going to bring that up too.
There's a chance that that's Drake May. Then 2 weeks later, you got J.J. McCarthy and the Vikings in week 11, and then Jaden Daniels and the Commanders in week 13. Now, you never know what's going to happen with injuries. Drake May might not be the starter in New England. It wouldn't shock me if it's Jacoby Brissett, but by week 9, they might be 1-6. That's a bad team. They might be 1-6, 1-7, whatever, and looking to get a look at Drake May. So 3 rookie quarterbacks in 5 weeks, and you open with one.
Yeah.
The number 1 overall pick, Caleb Williams, in week 1 in Chicago. That's an exciting game for me. You got a bit of a Kevin Byard revenge storyline, if you will. I don't buy too much into that, but he did post on Twitter like week 1 with the eyes emoji. So he obviously took note of the opponent. I'm excited about that game. I'm excited to see Caleb Williams in his debut. At least the Titans will get a lot of coverage in week 1. I promise you that. Everyone's going to be talking about how Caleb Williams played rather well or poorly. So those were a couple of things that stuck out. And then the home opener against Aaron Rodgers in week 2. I mean, what a home opener that should be. So a couple of things that stick out to me.
Yeah, the 4 rookie quarterbacks was definitely one that stuck out to me. So I'm glad you mentioned that. On the Drake May note, the Patriots don't have their bye until week 14. So it's probably not going to be one of those, we'll throw the rookie in after the bye, because they don't have like if they were the Titans situation, they had a week 5 bye, then you might think Brissett starts the first 4 games. I saw a clip floating around of Drake May mic'd up at Patriots training camp on Tuesday, and I don't know, man. I think he's going to be the starter sooner rather than later. So I do think the Titans, barring injury, are going to see 4 rookie quarterbacks on this schedule. The last thing that jumps out to me here is that there are no extended road trips and even less extended homestands. So the longest road trip they have is a 2-week road trip. They have three separate instances where they play 2 games in a row on the road. And as far as homestands go, they only have 2 separate instances where they play 2 home games in a row. So there's a lot of road away. So there's a lot of home, away, home, away, away, home, away, home, home, away, home, away. Like it's very back and forth, home, away. 2 2-week homestands, 3 2-week road trips, no 3-week span where they are on the road or at home for all 3 games, which is just interesting.
It's a very good schedule for a first-time head coach to navigate.
Yeah.
You've only got 1 primetime game. Like you said, no extended road trips, no extended homestands. Most of their games are at 12 noon Central on Sunday. Very, very easy schedule for a first-time staff to navigate.
Yeah, only 2 games as of right now that are not 12 p.m. Sunday kickoffs. And those are the Monday night game at Miami that we already touched on, week 4. And then the one that's very interesting to me, Week 10, Sunday, November 10th, Titans at LA Chargers at 4:05 p.m. Eastern Time. I might try to go to that game. We'll see what happens with my work schedule. Obviously, working on Sundays as I cover the NFL for Fox Sports. But hopefully, I'll be able to take that Sunday off and go to that game. And then the last one that's...
I might try to go. I already spoke to my friends. I'm too old to get enough friends together to do back-to-backs. But I did have my eye on the Buffalo Bills game in Buffalo. And then the following week, they're in Detroit. That's one of their home road stands, if you will. I'm like an hour and a half from Buffalo and 3.5 hours from Detroit. So
Yeah.
I'd love to try to do like a back-to-back thing.
You
I got to
should.
get to at least one of them this year.
And that's one of their 2 weeks on the road in a row moments. And then the last game of the season, week 18 versus Houston. Time TBD on that one. I imagine the NFL will wait to see. Yeah. There is a decent chance. I mean, the Titans would have to exceed national expectations, but there is a decent chance that week 18 game is for the AFC South. They'd obviously have to be better than Jacksonville, have to be better than Indianapolis. Houston, the expected odds-on favorite to win the division. That could be a very interesting game, week 18, or it could be the end of a mediocre first season for Brian Callahan with the Titans. We will wait to find out, but you hope that game is kind of for the AFC South just to add some extra juice there. Overall, it's tough to evaluate how difficult or not difficult this schedule is. I think the things we can evaluate are very favorable for the Titans. Like I said, no extended road trips, no Thursday night game, which is interesting. It used to be like a mandate that every team would play Thursday night, but they've done away with that. No holiday game, no Thanksgiving, no Christmas, no big game, no big spotlight games like that. Like I said, the only primetime game is shared with another kickoff at the same time. So that's sort of interesting. But when it comes to like which teams are good and bad, one other favorable thing, no opponents coming off of a bye week, which is, again, just an interesting little wrinkle for the Titans. They don't suffer like a rest disadvantage or a preparation disadvantage or anything like that. So as far as like how good or bad these teams are going to be, like Detroit's probably going to be good. Buffalo's probably going to be good. New York could be good. Green Bay's probably good. Some of these teams are going to be bad. Washington, New England. But it's really hard to evaluate, injuries, unknowns. Like at this time last year, people not in the AFC South looking at their team schedules would have said, Houston, that's a win. And then we saw how Houston exploded onto the scene. Yep. So you and I not going to try to evaluate strength of schedule because to me it's pointless to do at this point in time. Injuries and just growth or negative growth, regression by a team, like it's impossible to predict how hard or easy the schedule will be. So I'm not even going to go into that water.
No, I agree. And I'll give you an example of why you shouldn't go into it. Like you just said, Washington's going to be bad. I'm not convinced. That's one of those that can go either way. Like if Jaden Daniels is good, he's got two great receivers in Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson. They signed Austin Eckler at running back. They've got a good defense. Like they've got some playmakers up front there across the D-line. A couple guys in the secondary. So it's like, who the heck knows most? Remember, we thought the Giants in week 1 a couple of years ago, right? It was going to be a gimme. And Giants go on to go to the playoffs that year, win a playoff game with Daniel Jones at quarterback. Then they regressed last year to what we expect. So who the hell knows?
Exactly. So we'll see if the Titans can be a team that surprises people like that. I think they can be. The last note on the schedule here, maybe the most interesting game from a narrative standpoint, week 15, home against Cincinnati, Brian Callahan against his old team. Yeah. That will certainly be one that gets some media hype, I think. And the last thing I'll say is we'll see if Brian Callahan can be better in week 1 games than Mike Vrabel, who lost, I think, all of them except for one, like 2018 against Cleveland Browns. Was that his only week 1 win? I can't remember exactly, but I know for sure they lost the last 3 in a row. Saints last year, Giants the year before that, Cardinals the year before that. Like they were not good in week 1 games under Mike Vrabel.
And the first year was the Dolphins marathon game they lost.
Yeah, so Mike Vrabel not good in week 1 games with, as much time to prepare as you can possibly have for a game. We'll see if Brian Callahan can be better. Definitely interesting to prepare for a game at Chicago when you have no tape on rookie quarterback Caleb Williams and what he will look like as an NFL quarterback. So those are our schedule takeaways. Let's continue on here. The Titans announced a target opening date for the new stadium. They released a bunch of new renderings. They announced this new thing called Titans House, which is like an exclusive peek at the new stadium for PSL holders and season ticket members that will have a chance to set in the
experience center.
Yeah, exactly, like a little pop-up experience for a by appointment only for PSL holders. So like most people who aren't season ticket holders aren't going to be able to go to see this thing, but it's just a cool way for them to preview the new stadium. And that new stadium is set to be opened, target date for the 2027 season. Justin, that gives us 2024, 2025, 2026. These next 3 seasons will be the last 3 in the current Nissan Stadium, because the new stadium will also be called Nissan Stadium, which is going to get confusing as we talk about transitioning from one stadium to the other over the next several years here.
Look, I don't have a ton of thoughts on this. Number one,
Yeah.
the Titans House pop-up experience center did look really cool, right? Members of the local media, the beat writers were there. They tweeted out a bunch of information from the event. Great job by all of those guys that attended. It sounded like, I read the Paul Kuharsky piece on his website. It sounded like they had like a model, like a 6x8 model of the new stadium that is really, really cool and really, really detailed, to the point where I think PK said you could use a laser point to your seat, your potential seat
Wow.
in the stadium, your PSL. So it's like no pictures were permitted of the model because it's so cool. They want it, the first time you see it in person, they want it to be the first time you're seeing it. You've never seen a photo. It's a shame that you and I, it sounds really, really, I mean, Paul Kuharsky said, like, PK always tells it how it is. And he was like, if you can go to this thing, you should go. It was cool and it was worthwhile. So I bet it looks amazing. So if you listen to the show and you're a PSL holder, make sure you make your appointment. Head down to the side. Maybe sneak a photo for Graver and I. No, we're kidding. We don't want you to get kicked out.
Yeah.
But by all accounts, it sounds like an amazing experience. Good for the Titans. Really well done event from what I gather. So the fact, they've got me so excited about this new stadium. Number one, I'm already planning a trip there in 2027. It's a no-brainer. I got to see that thing the first year it opens. And number two, I'm not an idiot, so I understand construction takes time, but I'm almost disappointed we're still so far away from it because the thing looks incredible. Everything we're hearing about, it's incredible. It's a shame they got to play 3 more seasons here at the current Nissan Stadium, which I got to make an admission here. I think I said this once years ago. I hate saying this because I'm a Titans guy, but I got to admit, and it's not like I've been to a ton of NFL stadiums. The first time I ever went to Nissan Stadium, I remember being a little disappointed. Like, I was like, especially as a Canadian, you've got these built-in expectations for an NFL stadium. I've got a lot of great stadiums here in Toronto. I've been to a ton of stadiums around North America, whether baseball, hockey, basketball, football, you name it. I've been to Gillette Stadium. I've been to Fenway, yada, yada. I remember being a little underwhelmed, to be honest, with the current version of Nissan Stadium, if you will. So I'm certainly glad that they're building a new one. I can't wait to see it in 2027.
I think you're putting it lightly, saying you're underwhelmed. I think Nissan Stadium is pretty old and pretty terrible and definitely in need of some serious upgrade.
But that's the thing. So correct, but hold on. I'm going to stop you right there. Like, pretty old.
It's not that old.
Like, is 25 years considered old? It's not considered
It
old.
is, though. Compared to every NFL stadium, maybe not, but compared to the nice ones and the new ones, I mean, we've seen probably around 15 stadiums that have either been massively renovated or newly built since this Nissan Stadium opened back as Adelphia Coliseum when it was originally opened. And if it wasn't going to be a brand new stadium, it was definitely in need of some upgrades and some renovations. And as we saw with the whole saga last year, like, that was more expensive than just building a brand new stadium with a dome, the chance to host a Super Bowl, the chance to host a Final Four, and all the things that can bring tourism and money to Nashville for these huge events. So I think it's overdue, in my opinion. Not overdue, but by 2027, it'll feel overdue for a new stadium.
Because to capture my thoughts, to give you an example, I made my first trip to Nissan Stadium nearly 15 years ago. I'll never forget it because it was the game that Rob Baronis, it was a prime time, I don't know if it was Thursday or Monday now, kicked a game winner as time expired against the Steelers. It was like, what year? Geez, I can't remember now, but 2012-ish, maybe 2013. Like, they went 6-10 that year. I'll never forget it because I saw 33% of their victories that year in person, which I found hilarious. It's a stat I'll never forget in my mind because they won that game, and then I went the following week in Buffalo. They won that game too, but that's how, and I remember back then, 15 years ago already, I was pretty disappointed with Nissan Stadium. So can't wait to see the new version in 2027. It looks exceptional.
Yeah, maybe we'll do in 2027, we'll do a Music City Audible trip to a game. We'll go to one together, you and I. We'll meet up with some listeners and talk to some Titans fans that something we never really get to do. Maybe we'll have to plan that for 3 years from now. That'd be pretty fun. All right, Justin, let's get to what is happening now. That was the updates. That was a very long list of things that we had to cover because we just have been we've been gone for a week. So we had a lot of stuff to tackle there. But now we can move on to what's happening now, which is Titans OTAs are underway, literally happening right now. As we record this, there is an open media portion of practice going on right now. I've been keeping my eye on Twitter to see if there's any videos or anything posted, but nothing has come out yet. I think they have to they get to be out there for the open media portion of practice, but then they have to wait till it's over before they can tweet or post any clips. So we haven't seen anything of what's going on, but the Titans social media has shared a couple of clips, the Will Levis hitting DeAndre Hopkins with a nice slow-mo pass reel that they showed, Tavondre Sweat running a route of some kind and going out and catching a pass, Chidobe Awuzie, doing a drill where he catches a pass. So we're getting to see clips of these Titans players in their uniforms, in action, making plays on the field. Not a whole lot to glean right now from OTAs because they're really just getting into the swing of things, but it's fun to see Titans players and clips of Titans players making plays and get that OTA offseason hype machine rolling with the Will Levis to DeAndre Hopkins against no defense, like as if that's supposed to impress anybody. But hey, man, it's cool to see it happening on the field again for the first time in months.
It's just nice to have football back, as you said. A couple practices here of OTAs, couple strings. Then they're going to get into mandatory minicamp in early June. And then in mid-June, they'll have a final 3-day OTAs phase. So then they'll break for a little bit and we'll wait for training camp. But it just, as you said, it just feels good to see my football timeline filled with clips from Titans practice. You mentioned the 3 videos that I think we've seen out there, but we've had a ton of photos as well. And players will be made available to the media. Assistant coaches will be made available to the media. So it just feels good to be back in the swing of things.
So the Titans are practicing yesterday and today being Tuesday, May 21st. They'll be back on the field on Thursday, May 23rd. Then they have a few days off, May 28th, May 29th, and May 31st. Is the OTA schedule. Then they have a mandatory mini camp from June 4th through 6th, which will be fun to see all the players back there. And then one more OTA workout from June 10th to 13th before they break for the summer before training camp. And then you and I will have to really come up with some content because no football on the field to talk about from that June to July period there. But it's nice to see that they're back on the field. Everything's happening. I don't know if there's anything really that we can talk about taking away from OTAs because it's just it's so little actual football. Like it's cool for the coaches who are, newly hired.
No contact, no tackling.
No. I don't even know if they can do offense versus defense yet at this stage. Like we may be a couple weeks away from that still. So not a whole lot to look at, but it is cool for, a guy like...
You're allowed 7-on-7, I think 9-on-9.
Okay.
But no contact.
Yeah, no contact. So there's not really a whole lot that we can glean from these workouts, but it's cool for guys like Brian Callahan who, hired in January probably to take over this team, and he's just been in meeting rooms and draft meetings and he hasn't had a chance to go out on the field and coach, which is what he does. He's a coach. So it's cool for him to finally get out there on the field and actually work with these players. Speaking of Brian Callahan, he was on the Athletic Football show with Robert Mays last week. And he did a long interview, like a 40-minute interview with Robert Mays talking about a lot of things. It was a really cool interview. I highly encourage everyone to go check it out. And then Brian Callahan was on Bussin' with the Boys. That episode actually came out today, Tuesday morning. Another great interview. It's cool to see Brian Callahan doing all this media stuff, and it's something we've talked about a few times now on this podcast, but just his openness to say what he actually feels about things and really give his insight and opinion into the team and the being a coach and what it's like, as opposed to just giving those non-answer answers that Mike Vrabel always used to give. So it's cool to see that. And if you listen to the one with Robert Mays on the Athletic Football show, if you haven't, I highly encourage it. And if you did, you might know where I'm going here. But the one thing that stood out more than anything in that interview, and they talked a lot. They talked about, a lot of the processes with how things grew and transformed in Cincinnati and what Brian Callahan learned from Zach Taylor and all this stuff. But one of the things that stood out most to me was Brian Callahan talking about the Titans making a concerted effort to stack this roster around Will Levis with talent while he's on a rookie deal. Not just to see if Will Levis is the guy, which I think is sort of the national media consensus is the Titans are going to know if Will Levis is their quarterback or not after this. The way Brian Callahan talked about it, it sounded more like they aren't doing this to see if Will Levis is their guy. They're doing this because they believe Will Levis is their guy. They believe in what Will Levis can be to the point where they're we don't need to wait around to build up this roster. We need to be aggressive. We need to bring in talent now because this kid is a winner and he can go win us some games. So we'll see if their belief is actually rewarded. But it almost reminds me, and I'm not going to make this comparison, so slow down. Before I say it, I have to get this disclaimer out of the way. Slow down. I'm not calling Will Levis Patrick Mahomes. But it reminds me a little bit of when the Chiefs traded Alex Smith ahead of that season after Patrick Mahomes' rookie year, when they had, a season with him and an offseason with him, and they were like, they saw him behind the scenes and they thought, this guy is special. And I'm not saying Will Levis is on the same level as Patrick Mahomes from that regard, but just that chance to be with him behind the scenes and think, we believe in this kid enough that we're going to, focus on making him the focal point of our offense and of our team and make him a leader and involve him somewhat in the decision-making process. Not that they really asked him to make decisions, but just keeping him in the loop with everything they were doing in free agency with the trade for L'Jarius Sneed and all the stuff all the moves that they made this offseason. They believe in Will Levis to the point where I believe even more than I did before in Will Levis. And it just fills me with hope. And I don't know. I'm a believer. Are you a believer, Justin?
I am a believer, but I can't shake the thought that we should title this episode, Will Levis is Patrick Mahomes.
That will be clickable. I think we'll get some clicks if I do that one.
I think so. No, all kidding aside, look, I land somewhere in the middle. I fully believe in Will Levis as well. I'm a huge fan of I was a fan of his coming out of Kentucky. I've said it on here. I liked him throughout the pre-draft process. I had many arguments with some of my staff members at the Draft Network that didn't like him as much. So I do like him a lot. And I think there's an element of truth to both points, though, to be honest with you. I think they do believe in him. They're surrounding him with talent because partially they believe in him. Partially, you got to take advantage of that rookie deal. It doesn't make sense not to, especially as a second rounder. You don't get that fifth-year option, so you've lost 1 year of roster control. So the window to take advantage of the rookie deal is 1 year shorter than it typically is with rookie quarterbacks on their contract. So that's all true as well. But I also think the other part of it is true. They're not doing this to see if he's the guy per se, but you also don't want to have any regrets, right? You don't want to exit this thing saying, maybe if we had given him a better center, a better wide receiver 2, a better wide receiver 3, they did all of those things, right? Lloyd Cushenberry, Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd, a better left tackle, J.C. Latham, Tony Pollard. They're not going to have any. If he's not the guy, for example, it's not going to be because they didn't put him in a good situation, right? You don't want to have any regrets. They're not going to come out of this thing saying, damn it, maybe if we had done a few things differently, maybe it would have gone the other way. But no, they're going to know with a sense of definitiveness if he's the guy or not, because there's no supporting cast to be blamed on him not being the guy.
Right. And just what Brian Callahan says about Will Levis's ability to pick things up in meeting rooms, translate them to the practice field, his leadership, his will and desire to be great, his strong arm, his intelligence off the field. I just feel like he's a guy that we can believe in easily. He's easy to buy into as someone that we can get behind and support. So I'm excited to see how all that unfolds. I'm excited to see what stuff comes out of OTAs over the next few weeks and what content you and I are going to come up with for the podcast as we move forward here through the off season. Any final parting words before we say goodbye for today's episode, Justin?
No, thanks for everyone for tuning in. I know we played a little catch up with the schedule and rookie minicamp and the Nick Vannett signing, but was really glad we got to some really recent stuff like the Titans House pop-up experience in the new stadium and certainly OTAs and the Callahan. By the way, Callahan said something great about Traylon Burks on Bussin' with the Boys as well, so you guys might want to check out that interview. He was quite complimentary of him and the work he's put in through the offseason, so that's worth listening to. If you're catching up on Callahan interviews and you saw him on the Athletic show, you might want to go catch him on Bussin' as well. But no, again, thanks for everyone tuning in as we played a little bit of catch up. I'm excited. Next time we get together here in just a few days, we'll have heard a lot more from OTAs. That'll probably be our next episode, sort of a reaction to what's happening at OTAs. And once again, call me crazy, guys, but if Graver wasn't on vacation, we probably would have done an emergency pod to the Nick Vannett signing, because I wrote an emergency article, so why the hell not?
I don't know.
We're going to do an emergency pod sometime soon when we get the next signing, but we'll be back now on a bit more of a regular schedule. I've got a vacation time coming up here in about 2 weeks, but we'll be on a regular schedule till then. And we're going to plan a bunch of episodes out for that week that I'm off, because we're going to make sure we're hitting you every 2, 3, 4 days with brand new episodes. But I'm excited to get back with you later this week, I would say. to talk about OTA updates, because we'll have a ton of them by the next time we record.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, that'll do it for this one. As Justin said, thanks for tuning in. If you're listening on audio, we appreciate it. But if you're watching on YouTube, we appreciate it more. We really appreciate it. Our focus right now as a duo here is to grow the YouTube channel. So as much as we appreciate the audio support, we'd really prefer the YouTube support. Best way you can help our show grow is to watch every video we put out on YouTube, subscribe to the Music City Audible channel, give this video a thumbs up, like, and turn on channel notifications so you get an alert every time we drop a new video. Thanks also to our sponsors for this episode, Sinkers Beverages in East Nashville and Bluegrass Beverages in Hendersonville. Head over to Sinkers Beverages, where you will find a huge selection of bourbon, wine, beer, and all kinds of booze that you might possibly need to stock up on if you're throwing a party, if you're having like a little summer get together to kick off summer finally being here, and whatever else you might possibly need. Sinkers Beverages is the place to go. If you head to their website or check the link in this podcast description, you can join the In Crowd. In Crowd members get access to allocated wines and spirits, exclusive events, early access to barrel releases, and more. So join the Sinkers In Crowd today. And they're on Uber Eats. If you don't have time to get over to the store, you can just search Sinkers Beverages on Uber Eats and they will deliver everything you need right to your front door. All right, that'll do it for this one. As Justin said, we'll be back soon to talk more about OTAs and Titans updates. Until then, you all stay safe out there and tighten up.
A Broadway sports media production.